You shouldn't look at the past 2 years. I mean, every
Yeah.
year is different. Every year is different for college. I mean, you have
Yeah.
people that go to the draft, people that transfer. Like it, every year we reset. Like, yeah, you can look at it for stat wise, but other than that, like,
Otherwise,
who gives a
why don't you
fuck
just
what you
give
did
the why don't
last
you
year?
just give the reigning champ a playoff spot right off the rip? Don't
Exactly.
no matter how you guys play. 0-12, we'll see you in the playoffs.
All About the Balls podcast with Mark Davis, Chris Meinhardt, Luke Rule, and Nick the Doc Skirkowitz. Welcome to All About the Balls podcast. I'm Mark Davis in the sack house, ready to get spicy with Chris Meinhardt and Nick the Doc Skirkowitz because this is the final college episode we have going into conference championship weekend. We're going to give our predictions, what we think is going to happen between all 5 games of the Power 5, and who we think will get the Final 4 spots. Chris, how are you doing? How excited are you for college championship conference weekend?
Yeah, pretty fucking excited. We got a lot of big games, great weekend, and kick it right off on Friday. So I'm excited.
Damn right, Doc. How are you feeling? Florida State got back in the top 4. You guys play the Louisville Cardinals in Charlotte. How are you going?
Fucking nervous, dude. Fucking nervous. Louisville's a good team. Nervous, even if we win that game, to go to the playoffs with Rodemaker, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Texas had a big game too, Doc. We're number 7. We are one of the teams that's sitting there with you guys. Just got to play our game and see what happens after us, essentially, because we have the early game on Saturday. So first time, boys. Also, I wrote down all these fucking 4 teams. I look back at every single week going into like the final week. This is the first time all 5 conferences have had a chance to make the fucking playoffs that last weekend. So this is very exciting time. It's very good for the sport. You can say that all 5 Power 5s before the Pac-12 dissembles, that everyone has a shot essentially to making the playoffs. Some have a couple chances. Some can get 2 in, but they need some luck. Like Ohio State needs 3 teams to lose, essentially. Same thing with Washington. If they lose, they need teams to lose after them as well. So it's a chance for 2 SEC could get 2 as well. So
I'm going to be honest. I think if Michigan loses, I think Ohio State's in.
I think they're out.
Michigan's not lose.
If Michigan loses,
I know Michigan's not losing, but Ohio State number 6. If Michigan loses, I think Florida State is not looking too hot right now.
But put 2 Pac-12s over them.
You know, Oregon's one of those is losing, and if one of them's losing, they're falling all the way out. Because if 3 loses to 5, they're not just dropping to 4, and if 5 loses to 3, they're obviously not going because they're not in it right now.
I disagree. If Michigan loses to Iowa, Michigan and Ohio State are out, and if Oregon beats Washington, Oregon and Washington get in, and then potentially Texas or Alabama, because Texas or Alabama will jump Ohio State if they win, just because they have a conference game. Unfortunately, we saw it many years ago when Oklahoma back before the Big 12 had championship games. Early on, and they went 11-1, and then they got jumped for a conference that went 12-1. They won their conference, so you got kicked out. So Ohio State, they need Texas, Florida State, and Alabama to lose. Michigan losing, it really hurts them because that makes their loss look even worse to Michigan if Iowa goes in there and beats them. That's the way that I look at it. Ohio State they need Michigan to win, and then the other 3 to lose. That's what I think.
No, I see what you're saying, but I don't know. I mean, Ohio State lost a good game to Michigan. Ohio State's been on top every other game. I mean, if Michigan loses, if Michigan comes out and just plays a bad game and loses, I don't think it makes Ohio State's loss look worse.
Why would they put Ohio State over Michigan?
Everybody, huh?
Why would they put Ohio State over Michigan if they just beat them a week ago?
Well, because Michigan's number 2, and if they lose to number 16, they're not going to fucking stay number 2.
Oh yeah, they're going to go to probably number 4
they're going to go lower than that.
But that just shows regular. That's what we just talked about before the show.
Like Ohio State was number 2, lost to number 3. I mean that's a much better loss than 2-16.
But that means regular season doesn't matter though. Like that means that game didn't matter.
It's not about if Michigan loses. Ohio still needs a lot more to happen, even if Michigan loses. Because say FSU
Ohio
wins.
State needs another one to fall out. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because say FSU wins, then that opens up a spot. And then that's going to give a spot to the Big 12. So with Texas, if Texas wins, then they would be in. Ohio needs a lot to happen for them to get in.
I don't think either team that loses in the Pac-12 championship make it to the playoffs. Not without a lot more losses happening.
I think Washington can make it with 1 loss if Michigan loses. But if let's say Michigan does lose, Doc, let's bring up your theory. let's say Michigan loses and Florida State loses. Let's say Oregon wins or Washington wins, whatever. Bama beats Georgia and Texas wins. They'll probably put Georgia in with Bama, Texas in the Pac-12, and Ohio State and Michigan won't get in.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But I mean, with Washington, if Washington loses to Oregon, the same that Michigan or Ohio State lost to Michigan, if Washington loses that game, they are definitely falling below Ohio State. There's no way they don't.
But they'll put 2 SEC schools in if Bama wins over Ohio State and Michigan.
Yeah, they may put another one in from another conference. I just there's no, if Washington loses that game, there's no way Washington stays above Ohio State.
Ohio State's only at 6 to stay relevant in this conversation. If 3 teams loses, they can still get in. Like last year, where they were 5 and USC lost with TCU 3 and 4, and then that's how they got in because USC had 4 losses.
No, the chances are slim. The chances are definitely slim for Ohio State to get in. I'm just saying the only point I'm making is that if Washington loses, I don't see Washington going to the playoff. Not without Florida State losing as well.
They would need a lot. Texas would have to lose.
Texas losing, they would need way too much because at the very least they're falling behind Ohio State because they're lost. They're 1 spot lower than Ohio State was when they lost to Michigan. They're 2 spot. The team that their opponent is 2 spots lower than what Michigan was. And if Ohio State fell out of the top 4 on that loss, and these are lower teams, and not by much, but there's no way Washington stays in the playoffs.
Yeah, they would need a lot. I'm rooting for Iowa though, man. I'm a Hawkeye fan this week. Michigan losing doesn't really do that much for Texas, but yeah,
if the defense shows up, I don't know. Michigan defense too good for that Iowa offense, man. That Iowa offense rough.
Ty Schmidt, Iowa Hawkeye on the Pat McAfee show said the way to win this game 8 to 10 turnovers and plus territory. That's what Iowa needs to do.
And field goals, a lot of field goals.
He projected
your kicker better be fucking pumping steroids straight into the artery in the leg.
I think he said 12-10 or 12-9 was his final score. Iowa, obviously, he's a homer, so he's just saying
that's a very, very safe score for Iowa. If Iowa's going to win, that is a very, very predictable score.
I think Michigan wins that score too. I could see like 15 to like 9, 15-10 Michigan. I think I could see
low scoring game.
Doesn't matter who wins. Yeah.
Especially if they just run the ball.
I feel that's what
I don't think they're going to get away with that against Iowa.
I think if they get up by like 6 or 9 points, somewhere around that, like a few field goals, I think they'll start running the ball, just wasting the clock. That's all Iowa. Yeah. You just got to drain the clock against Iowa, and you win that game. But hey, let's talk about these games. Let's talk all 5 Power Fives. Let's start with your team, Doc, the ACC, Florida State, Louisville. Oof. Who do we have winning? Like ultimately, like what you think?
Yeah, this is tough. The Florida State fan in me obviously wants to go Florida State. I gotta hope that Rodemaker is getting drilled in practice and they're starting to get down his throat after the last game, and he came back strong after he showed that after he passed the concussion protocol. So I mean, if he comes out playing like that, Florida State's got a chance. A lot of me thinks that Louisville can walk away with this. But I'm going to go Florida State. I'm going to keep Florida State. Got to stick with them.
Chris, I think we talked about last night as the show was going off. It's a mixture of my brain. It's a mixture of my heart here. I need Florida State to lose. I think that's our best chance of getting in is with the Seminoles loss. And I'll give it to them. Florida State, they survived Rivalry Weekend in the Swamp in Gainesville. But I think Louisville plays better offense than the Gators do. They play a little bit better defense than the Gators do as well, and I think that's what it's going to come down to is they're in Charlotte. Yeah, probably Florida State's going to pack the stadium. They do have a good fan base. I'll give them that. They travel well. I have Louisville winning, and unfortunately, if Jordan Travis isn't there, if Jordan Travis is there, I think Florida State wins with a big second half.
He's going to be on a sideline, dude. He's going to be on the sideline this time. He ain't going to be up in the boxes.
No, he'll be up in the box, elevated leg and all. He ain't being down there. He ain't Aaron Rodgers. He can't do that shit. So I'm gonna go Louisville. It's a mixture of heart and brain. I just think that Louisville's better than Florida. I think Louisville coming off a Kentucky loss too. They're gonna be a little pissed off. They want to play spoiler and to the ACC counterpart they have. So I'm gonna go Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean Louisville's gonna come in here playing hot. They just lost, like you said, Mark. Spoiler, but I think Florida State has a way talented team than Louisville does. I think they're gonna figure out a way to edge it in. And then make the playoffs, and then shit the bed in the playoffs.
And Luke's with you
just because they don't have Jordan Travis. I mean, if they had Jordan Travis, it'd be a completely different scenario. But I think losing him was a heartbreak and just shambles to the
That
hopes
defense
of
has been
winning
lights
the
out lately too.
Natty.
I wish Chris, I'm telling you, like I know last night we were talking. I wish that, I mean, for us, we just need to do our job. We should beat Oklahoma. We'd be 13-0. And I wish we would have, because that probably would have either kicked Washington or Florida State out, even if Travis was healthy. We probably would have been higher. So like I want to see Florida State do good, but I can't for this situation because we need something to happen. And I just
Were you guys ever higher than Florida State? No, right?
We were when we beat Alabama.
Okay.
And that was with the AP though. And I think the playoff committee, if we would have been undefeated at this point, even before Travis got hurt, I believe they would have kept us higher. We probably would have been 3. Well, actually, we probably would have been 4 with Michigan 3 and Ohio State 2. And you or Washington.
Yeah, you guys would have had a lot more stock if you stayed undefeated.
But that's our fault. I mean, but I think this is going to be a good game, honestly, dude. I don't think it's going to be a blowout away, boys. I think that FSU and Louisville, I think they're going to play each other to the end. It's going to be a fourth quarter game. And we're just going to see who doesn't make the key mistakes at the end. I think that's what's going to come down to is which defense makes the stop in the fourth quarter. So, but with that, Luke's with you guys, so I'm assuming you guys have Florida State in your playoffs. Luke has them as the 3 seed in his, so.
Yeah.
I have
them
number
number 3.
Well, let's move on to the Pac-12. Chris, you mentioned Friday night. Rematch. It's 36-33 earlier in the year. The Ducks and the Huskies, boys. The last time the Pac-12 will have a championship game for the foreseeable future, I have the Ducks in rematch game. I think it's going to be close again. I have the Ducks in Vegas. I think Oregon finds a way into the playoffs. They were in the first ever 4-man, and they'll be in the first or the last ever 4-man. I have the Ducks here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Oregon is literally the TCU of last year. I think they're fucking frauds. Like, don't get me wrong. I think they're very talented. But, I mean, they're also in the Pac-12. They should have beat Washington to begin with. But, I mean, a lot of bad coaching calls during that game made them lose that game.
They were aggressive.
I do think they come in. I think they beat Washington. I think they get that 4 spot. But I do believe that first playoff game against Georgia, they're going to get fucking slapped like TCU did.
Oh, so you're spoiling that. You have UGA winning against Alabama. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, I said it last night on the show, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if we were recording then or not, but I do think – but, yeah, continue on.
No, I agree. I think Alabama's going to come in. I think they're going to play a little more conservative on those 4th downs and those trick plays and the 2-point conversions and everything else. I think they got kind of humbled a little bit in the last matchup and realized they can't just do that against anybody. I think the tempo is different and just the whole mindset is going to be much different for the coach and Bo Nix back there. So I think Oregon comes in and upsets this one, and I'm taking them at the 4 seed.
It's a close. I mean, it's neutral site too. It's not in Seattle this time. It's in Las Vegas, so it's a neutral site. Oregon fans travel, so you're going to see a lot of green and yellow. I can't wait to also see the colors or the uniform scheme they have going on too in a Pac-12 title game. I believe Oregon's gonna be cooking up some good color schemes.
Oh yeah.
But so you guys have Florida. So damn, all 3 of you, Luke, and Chris, you got the 3 of you, Florida State, Oregon as the 3 and the 4 at the moment. So I think you guys are set on the favorites winning. I'm assuming. So Michigan, Iowa. I'm assuming you guys. I mean,
that's
unless God forbid a miracle happens, we have Michigan winning this game, don't we?
Yeah. I mean, I do have Michigan winning, but don't get me fucking wrong. I'm going to be praying to Jesus that Iowa somehow causes fucking chaos.
I would love it, man. I'm telling you right now, if Michigan, that's the question, and maybe if Iowa, but I think if Iowa beats Michigan, and let's say like what we're saying is going to happen, Michigan, Georgia, Oregon, and Florida, or you guys say Florida State, I say Louisville, but let's say in your guys' situation that happens, and Michigan loses, does Texas or Michigan get in if Texas wins? That's who it's going to come down to.
Texas gets in.
That's the
if Texas can handle what they can handle against Oklahoma State and they win the Big 12, then they're in.
Because the committee has shown when records are about the same, and or like less records, but the situation would be the same record, conference championships do matter. So
yeah, it's an extra game, and it's the 2 toughest in the conference. I mean, they're big games.
And I think losing to Iowa is going to kind of, I guess, maybe I get beating Ohio State, but losing to Iowa might knock the committee down a little bit with them, even though Texas did lose to Oklahoma, who's 12 right now. But I think we can all agree it's maybe a little more well-respected loss, too.
If Michigan loses this game, they're dropping out of the top. I'll say top 12.
I don't know if they go that low, but I think
they're definitely out of the top 10, no doubt.
I don't know.
They're definitely they're not out. 10. They'll stay in the top 10. They'll probably be like
around 8 or 9.
They'll be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Iowa's ranked, but that offense.
The offense is bad.
Yeah, but the defense
and a Michigan high-powered offense like Michigan and a good defense couldn't shut down Iowa's offense and couldn't get your guys into the end zone. I don't know. I don't think maybe not top 12 or maybe not out of the top 12, but I think they fall out of the top 10. 2 losing to 16, I think they go out of the top 10.
I mean, we
saw Bama fall out of the top 10 and they lost to number 11.
But it's different when there's only a few teams playing this week too. It's when everyone's playing, it's harder to like drop. When there's only like a handful of teams playing, dropping as far down, it's harder just because no one else played.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the issue. But if my scenario works out where like Georgia wins, Oregon and Texas win, and Michigan loses, and Florida State loses, does Washington get in over Michigan? I don't think Ohio State gets in.
Wait, say it one more time.
So let's say Georgia. So my scenario, I have Georgia winning. I mean, we all have Georgia winning. I have Georgia beating Alabama. I have Oregon beating Washington. I have Texas beating Oklahoma State. Florida State loses to Louisville, and Iowa beats Michigan. Does the Huskies get in with that one loss to number 5 Oregon? I don't think Ohio State gets in because they lost to Michigan. I think it comes down to Michigan. I think it comes down to Oregon or Washington.
I think it depends on how they lose. I mean, if it's a close game, then yeah, maybe. But I mean, if Oregon comes in there and blows them out, then Ohio's into the playoffs.
I just don't see them getting over Michigan just because they just lost to them. Like that hurts them so bad that they just lost.
But Washington losing that game is more recent than Ohio State losing that game.
Yeah, but that's why
they lost to a better team.
But that's why Michigan would get in. They would get in as the 4 seed. They would just drop from 2 to 4 because they beat Ohio State, and they're going to value Michigan more than Washington.
That could.
I don't think they would drop from 2 to 4 if they lose to Iowa. I think the reason why Ohio would get over Michigan is because of the way they lost. I mean, Ohio had a chance to win that game.
Michigan's going to feel like Texas. I'm telling you, they're going to say then head-to-head and fucking regular season does not fucking matter. That's
Either
what they're
way,
going to say.
I mean, if chaos, no, I agree. If chaos happens, people are going to get their butts hurt from the committee.
Someone's getting hurt. I mean, people are already going to be hurt because you already hear like the Kirk Herbstreits and the Paul Feinbaum saying that even if Florida State goes 13-0, they shouldn't be in over like these one-loss conference winners. So like even those teams are going to be butthurt. They're going to sit there and be like, well, is it best team or more deserving? So they're already going to be butthurt. Even though I believe Florida State should go, they're 13.
Last season for butthurts. So I mean, if you can't make it in the top 12 teams, then you really do suck and shouldn't be in the playoffs.
Yeah, top 12 is going to be rough for some.
Well,
imagine Iowa making that.
Well, especially the Big Ten, like the Michigan-Ohio State game. If they're both undefeated going into that game, that first game doesn't mean jack shit. It does not mean a damn thing.
No, it's just going to for seeding.
It would matter the next week when the other team.
Yeah.
If Ohio State loses to Michigan, and Ohio State beats them next week, that one first loss in the big game, part 1, didn't matter. It really didn't. Because the Big Ten.
What they need to do is get rid of fucking conferences. If you want the best of the best in there, you need to get rid of conferences and pit the top 2 in the conference. It should not be fucking Michigan and Iowa in the Big Ten championship. That's ridiculous.
Well, that's what they're doing. They're getting rid of the divisions for the Big Ten, like I believe the SEC is doing the same
divisions.
thing.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
The ACC's already started. The Pac-12. I mean, the Big 12's done it now. I think everyone's getting to that point, but people are sitting there saying that takes the rivalry effect out of it the last week if they're both undefeated. Because then part 2 matters more than part 1.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand both arguments to it, but like even with Big 12, it shouldn't be Texas and Oklahoma State. It should be Texas and Oklahoma playing for Big 12 right now.
I mean, that's
100%. You'd have rematches going across the board for another chance of Iowa to get in and prove that hey, eye test whatever what happens in season matters, but that rematch could have shown that it was a fluke.
I mean, Chris, that's funny coming from an LSU fan that last year that had a worse record than Alabama, and Alabama wasn't in the SEC championship.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should have won. I mean, we beat Alabama, so
Because conference record is more important than overall record. I don't like that. I don't like that because it doesn't typically work out that way, like how it worked out for you guys last year. But it did go that way where you guys were 9-3 and Bama was 10-2. And
I also feel like the
Whatever they
SEC is a
were.
little different.
Conference does matter though, because these motherfuckers are playing cupcakes in D2 schools. Why should you give
I feel
credit
like
for
that. The SEC is a
play-
little different also because the West is fucking powerhouses compared to the East. I mean, you have Georgia.
oh, that's the Big Ten East essentially, like how the Big Ten's with Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. They're all
Hey, man,
three.
they
in
got
the
Yeah.
same-
Illinois.
You have lopsided fucking conferences within the division, you know?
But I mean, but you guys played so LSU and Alabama last year, they played a fairly good, I get it. You guys played Florida State, who was better than Texas, but Alabama did play Texas. So they both played two big name schools out of conference. It wasn't like they played about the same amount of strength of schedule, in my opinion. Florida State was a little better, yes.
Well, I mean,
Right, but that's
I
one
mean,
game. Who did Alabama play 2 weeks ago?
Well, that's what LSU does the
It
same
just-
shit.
it doesn't matter about who LSU played 2 weeks ago. I apologize that the fucking SEC isn't full of ACC teams where we play fucking Duke
Well,
as a conference game.
Well, you
Okay,
guys do play
like-
four. You guys do play four out of
Duke's got a
conference
good team.
games. You're the only conference to play four
Stop.
out of conference games, I believe, out of the Power Five.
Yeah, because the SEC, because I mean, I'll give credit this year. The SEC isn't what the SEC used to be, but back in the day, the SEC was fucking full of powerhouses. Like us playing
I get
division
that.
games.
But you reward
Like-
you reward the SEC by playing 3 cupcakes, guaranteed, and a couple of you guys do at the end of the year, like the 11th game of your guys' schedule. which
Georgia
is
should
just-
not get credit to be the top team in their conference for wins over UT Martin and Ball State.
But they did beat Tennessee.
That's
But they
why
beat
conference matters.
But they beat it. But the problem is they beat everyone, so they're undefeated. But last year, Alabama 11-1 last year. Or were they 10-2? Because they weren't in the playoffs. I think they were 10-2, but they lost LSU and they were both tied in conference. But Bama had a better overall. I mean, I just there's some quirks I had with college. But hey, let's get back to it real quick. We all have Georgia winning. Luke has on that too. Let's go Big 12. Texas, Oklahoma State. Of course, I have the Horns. Big game for Quinn Ewers. Big game for Sark to call up a good scheme. I'm a little nervous. I told you, Chris, on our last 10 games against Oklahoma State, we've only won 2, and that came in 2019 and 2020. So we have not had a pretty good track record against the Sooners or against the Cowboys the last decade. And I'm a little nervous, but I do have my Horns in Dallas, Texas. So give me the Horns.
I'm taking Oklahoma State in this one. I think the passing game's been pretty equal across the board. The rush game has been very, very impressive for Oklahoma State this year. Texas lost that game to Oklahoma, and seeing OK State go in there and take Oklahoma at home 27-24. I mean, there's a lot of talent on this team. The loss to UCF obviously was ugly. I don't really know what the hell happened there. That took a lot of credibility from them. But other than that, I mean, this team's played pretty sound all year. They've been rather consistent for the most part. So I think that this is a team that can definitely come in and upset Texas. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a 1-possession game, and I think it's going to come down to scoring with maybe 45 seconds left, something like that. And Texas got to drive the field and hopefully find.
They also lost to
What?
South Alabama. Oklahoma State did. It wasn't just UCF.
Yeah,
It
but
wasn't.
they're
it
looking
wasn't
a
just
lot better
loss.
lately, though. Yeah,
It was
they're
a
looking a lot
blowout.
better lately, though.
Yeah, that was 33-7.
Let me pull up the schedule real quick.
No,
It was a
I will
blowout.
say, Doc, they do have some big wins. Obviously, beating Oklahoma in the Battle of Bedlam in Oklahoma State was big. I'll give that to them.
And
That's
they
a
could
big
be
game every
fucking
year.
sneaky.
But and I said the track record, they have Texas's number. Now, this is probably the best team Texas has had in the past decade. So, I mean, maybe the tides have turned. It sucks that Jonathan Brooks is out. He was one of our. I mean, they have Ollie Gordon, so it would have been fun watching Ollie Gordon versus Jonathan Brooks. Honestly, two top running backs in the nation. But yeah, Ollie Gordon is pretty good. He's had some duds lately, but Let's see what he does against Texas. A better defense.
But you look at going what you said, and this is where kind of the progression of the season, what we were talking about before the show, can play a part in this. I mean, Oklahoma State started out 2-2. They won the first two, and then dropped back to back against that ugly South Alabama game, and then Iowa State, a one-score game against Iowa State. But I mean, since then they had the even uglier loss to UCF. But I mean, overall, this team has looked a lot better in the last 6-8 weeks than they did in the openers.
No, I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to what team are we going to get? Are we going to get the UCF game, or are we going to get the fucking Oklahoma team? But I still do think Texas edges this one out and wins.
I think the biggest thing that's going to drive it is Texas coaching and play calling, and kind of how they come out, and whether they think that they're entitled to win this game, and if they come out kind of cocky, or if they play the game that they know that they can play to win. I think that's gonna be a big part in how they go.
I think it's going to come down to Quinn Ewers. Is Ewers going to play good, or is he going to play bad? I mean, he's wishy-washy.
He was good last week in rivalry week.
I mean, last week, yeah, but the week before he was trash. I mean, I don't know exactly, but like, there's been games that
week before he showed. So remember, that was his second game back. He actually showed flashes. Week 12, actually, I have it right here. So against Iowa State, Quinn Ewers was 23 of 33 for 281 and 2 touchdowns. It was the first game back against who we played. We played TCU. That was Iowa the game. That was TCU.
Oh,
the game against
sorry.
Iowa State, he played good. Texas Tech, he played good. What Doc said about entitled, I don't get that. I have not got that vibe once off Texas. Now, do they play cocky and confident? Yes.
I'm not saying I got that vibe, but a lot of teams coming in here, especially when you're going for a championship, a lot of will come in here and like, especially when you're expecting to play Oklahoma, right? And you're going up against Oklahoma State instead, and you're like, oh, this is the easy one. I'm not saying they've played like that. I haven't gotten that vibe either, but
I feel teams that are undefeated and already kind of like their foot's already in the door for the playoffs. Those are the teams that you got to watch out for being entitled and expecting to win.
Yeah.
Texas has to win. They know style points, like Luke says, it somewhat matters. So they're out there to try and win rather than they can just coast by because they need to win and then they need help. So they're in that situation where they're playing from behind essentially. So they have to make up some ground. I think maybe it was like if we were undefeated, yeah, I could see that totally what you're saying, but with us being down at the moment, we're 7. I feel like they're going out there. Sark's going to have them playing. I like what I'm seeing from him. Still believe get that man a beer. Let him coach the game drunk. He does coach the game a little better when he's got some alcohol in him. But
let's just hope we don't get Wyoming Quinn Ewers. You know what I'm saying?
Quinn Ewers didn't do that bad, did he?
11 of 21 for 131.
Yeah, it's all good. That was also, but you said that was like the beginning of the year, right? It's about what you're doing now. He's pretty hot right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it means a lot more what you've been doing lately.
They're actually getting
people
Xavier
progress
Worthy
throughout the season.
They're getting Xavier Worthy involved again, so that's good to see. First team all Big 12 this year, so it's good to see Xavier out there doing his thing. And
what year is he?
He's out the door. I do know that. I believe he's done. He's there. Everyone's already got him mocked in the drafts. I couldn't tell you what year he's in. I'm not big. I don't
hear much about him.
He's like projected to be a late first round, early second round pick on a lot of the people's.
I feel like he deserves to be higher than that.
His numbers. So the problem is he's smaller. He's kind of like a Tank Dell, essentially, just a little bigger than Tank Dell, but. He's all around it. Like he can do like the little things like the jet sweeps. He's a punt returner. He can do all the electric plays. But our tight end, he's supposed to be the second tight end off the board after Brock Bowers. So Texas has some names.
172.
He's a little smaller back or a little smaller running wide receiver. But
almost looks like he should be on a Sarah McLachlan commercial.
So damn it! So you, Luke, all 3 of you guys got Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Oregon. You guys have no chaos, no fun this week. Nothing for the committee to really think about. Just do they put Oregon over Florida State? It's the only conversation they're going to have. Is should Oregon be 3 or should they be 4? Now they are going to argue that. Now don't get me wrong, Doc. You guys go 13. This would not be the first time that Florida State first ever playoff for the 4-man. Florida State was 13-0, Oregon was 12-1, and Oregon was 2, and y'all were 3. So it would not be the first time that they somehow jumped you guys going into the after the conference championship weekend.
I mean, I feel like 2 and 3 doesn't fucking matter. You play each other anyways.
But 3 and 4
Yeah.
matters.
3 and 4 matter. Big.
No, Oregon can absolutely jump it. I mean, a win for Oregon over number 3 Washington is a much bigger win than beating 14 Louisville. And you still have to account for the fact that, you know, if Oregon stays healthy and doesn't have any issues on Saturday, they're coming in with a fully healthy team, Bo Nix and everything that team can do. You know, we're still missing Jordan Travis. Honestly, depending on the win and how convincing they are and how Florida State does against Louisville, I mean, there's still a chance a team can knock Florida State out. If Florida State wins a 21-20 in overtime or at the end of the fourth quarter and Texas and Alabama blow out their opponents, I mean, one of them could jump them easily.
I can see it too. And, you know, I have something to pick with Stephen A. Smith. You know, we gave him some props on Monday night, Doc, when you were talking about his old, you know, developmental talk with the Bears. I have something to talk about with this guy. He was out there, and, you know, Mad Dog Russo, he got to give a point to Paul Feinbaum and old Stephen A. Stephen A. said if Georgia loses and Florida State loses, Georgia and Bama should be in, Texas should be out the curb, because you can't just have the 2-time reigning champion out the window watching us play because no one took them out. Bull fucking shit. They just lost. Someone took them out. It's not like they were undefeated and didn't get in. They just lost. Someone beat them. The defending champions lost. So what do you mean no one beat them? Alabama beat them. That's
if Georgia loses, Georgia goes to number 5 and Alabama goes to number 4.
I also
and
don't
Texas
think
goes
that
to 3 if Florida State loses.
you should
but
look at the
Georgia
past 2
goes
years.
to number 6 if Texas wins as well.
Was that Chris? Because I agree with what you're saying. I think.
Yeah, that you shouldn't look at the past 2 years. I mean, every year is different. Every year is different for college. I mean, you have people that go to the draft, people that transfer. Like it, every year we reset. Like, yeah, you can look at it for stat wise, but other than that, like,
otherwise, why don't you just give the reigning champ a playoff spot right off the rip? Don't matter how you guys play. 0-12, we'll see you in the playoffs, big dog.
You see, and this might be the bias you talking, and me agreeing with Steve Sarkisian, is I think still, if it comes down to, let's say Florida State wins and Texas and Alabama wins, I think going into Tuscaloosa and winning by 10, beating number 3, I get it, they're not number 1, beating number 3 while we're 12 or 11, whatever we were at the time, by double digits is better, unless they blew the fuck out of Georgia. Now, if they blow the shit out of Georgia, I can understand now that argument. But if they win by like 6 points, yeah, they're 1, but they're a higher ranking than Texas was when they beat a higher ranked school, and it's neutral site. I get it, it's in Georgia, but let's not act like Alabama's not going to fucking pack that stadium. They're only like an extra hour and a half away from Atlanta than Athens is. So I think still the better win, depending on how bad Georgia loses by, Texas is still a better win because you went into a non-neutral site. That's why I think it's more important. If we get to that argument.
I agree to an extent, but then I also look at the fact that if Alabama does win that game, they knocked off the team that's been number 1 all year long, every single week, every single day. And honestly, if Alabama beats Georgia, there is no way in hell
say it.
At 12-1, Alabama does not go into the top 4.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else. I thought you were going to say that bullshit excuses. You can't have the SEC sitting outside while everyone else is playing. That's a bullshit. No. I hate that. No,
I'm not saying that. Though. Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm not. If Alabama was further down the list than what they are right now, like if Iowa wins, Iowa ain't going in, right? If Alabama was ranked 14, they're not going. And Louisville's not going if they beat Florida State. But Alabama's knocking on the door at 7. And if they beat Georgia, I think Georgia drops to 6. If Michigan wins, Michigan goes to 1.
I'm telling you, Florida State wins and Alabama and Texas. If you guys win and Texas and Alabama wins, that is going to be an interesting argument for the committee.
Yeah. Florida State could fall out still, and I think it's all going to come down. Honestly, I don't think it's going to matter how you or Alabama win. I think it's going to matter how Florida State wins, because that's what's going to drive it. Is this quarterback ready to make this college playoff interesting, or we want to keep it looking good and we're just going to take them out of it?
Because the committee's always done more deserving, even though they say it's best teams. They've always done more deserving. But usually the more deservings, they have better records. So in this situation, if Florida State's 13-0, Texas and Alabama are 12-1, yes, We both have less records than you guys. Probably are better teams at the moment just because of the QB situation, but you guys are the more deserving team because you guys won every game.
I
It's
agree,
never been
but
done.
my worry is that we're going to
done.
go into that first playoff game, and it doesn't matter who we play. We could be the number 1 seed, and we can go into that first playoff game and lose by 40.
We mentioned another note. We can't use this quarterback bullshit excuse anymore because you know what happened in the very first playoff, Chris and Doc? Ohio State had Cardale Jones come in right before the Big Ten championship, and they were 12-1, and they got in, and they won the college championship. They went in, destroyed all three Heisman's candidates. They destroyed Melvin Gordon. They destroyed, I think it was Amari Cooper, and then they destroyed they wiped the floor with Marcus Mariota. So we can't sit there and use that QB excuse for Florida State if Ohio State didn't get that same fucking hate, almost 10 years ago. So I'm on Florida State's bandwagon with that. If they win, they should be in. I'll give them that.
Yeah, the only tough thing is Cardale Jones had talent. I have yet to see if Rodemaker is there yet.
He rode Zeke Elliott. That was Zeke's monster game. Zeke was going off those games. So if your running back breaks out for 200 yards this week, like Zeke did against Wisconsin, then you guys should be in. And you guys have no losses. You guys have no losses. Ohio State had a loss when that happened. So, I mean, yeah, they were on their third string quarterback too. People forget that. JT Barrett was the second string. He got hurt. Braxton Miller was the first string. He got hurt early on in the season. So they were on the third string quarterback and they made the playoffs.
I just look at a 36 QBR coming in 2 weeks ago and then a 43 QBR last week. And there's a lot of worry there.
He's progressing. Numbers gotten higher.
I mean, that number's gotten higher. Still couldn't manage it. And Florida State plays a gritty defense, but couldn't manage to find the end zone. 134 passing yards, less than 50% passing. I mean, if there's a game that's going to happen, it's going to be Florida. But as we go to the playoffs, it ain't going to get any easier. Even this week with the conference championship, it ain't going to get easier.
Well, boys, it's going to be an interesting weekend. That's for sure. All eyes on all 5 games. Everything's on the line for all 5 conferences. Finally, took fucking almost 10 years it actually is the 10th playoff for the 4-man, and all 5 conferences have a chance. And this is probably the most interesting weekend I think we've all gone into for conference championship weekend in a long time.
You haven't even hit on the game of the week
mistake. Yet. Oh, shit. You didn't, Mark.
Tulane?
No.
Liberty?
Liberty, baby. Liberty and New Mexico State. New Mexico State with 10 wins this year.
So think about it. New Mexico State they beat the shit out of Auburn, right? Auburn played Georgia and Alabama close. New Mexico State wins the SEC. That's the way I'm looking at it.
They're fucking cowards. I mean, Liberty's about to go
That's
undefeated.
Luke logic.
Liberty's undefeated, and what are they going to get? Fucking shitty bowl
an
game?
Asterisk. They're going to get an asterisk and a national championship.
Natty Champ, 2023. They're going to get that banner.
Some random ass fucking news association will be like, they won the Natty.
Yep.
Well, that's the Luke logic I used with the New Mexico State win the SEC. And then if they win the SEC, because you're in the SEC, you should automatically be in the playoffs. We should always pencil them in a playoff thing too. So we'll pencil New Mexico State in as the SEC champs in a different conference, and then we'll get Tulane or Liberty and New Mexico State in the playoffs. We should kick out 2 of the teams. God, I wish Luke was here tonight. I really do. But all right, boys, let's just pay attention to it. Let's focus on it. Chris, hopefully Jayden Daniels wins the Heisman. Hopefully Bo Nix has a bad game so Jayden Daniels can get it. I'm rooting for him.
I think Jayden Daniels should win it regardless of what Bo Nix does. I mean, he leads pretty much every stat in quarterback. So
his stats are better than Joe Burrow's through his first 12 games of his greatest season of all time in college football. But no one's going to remember it because he's not 12-0.
Exactly. Defense fucking blue dick. But yeah, I think Jayden Daniels should win Heisman and Malik Neighbors best wide receiver in college football right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Jayden Daniels has been fucking absolutely incredible. I don't think the guy's getting any of the credit that he deserves, senior going into the draft. I think especially playing in the SEC, I would take Jayden Daniels over Caleb Williams in a heartbeat. I think Caleb Williams is soft. I think when he plays any defense in the top 100, I think he crumbles. I like Daniels. He's got my vote for Heisman.
Well,
And I think everybody fucking forgets that Bo Nix had to leave the SEC to get these numbers. He was not putting up these numbers. No. He was not putting up these numbers against SEC defenses.
But was Jane Daniels putting these numbers up in the Pac-12?
I mean, I'd have to look at his fucking.
I mean, and Joe Burrow also, and Joe Burrow couldn't even win the job in Ohio State, and he had to come. I mean, transfers happen. I mean, sometimes the system's not meant for you. You have to transfer. Michael Penix, same thing. He was in Indiana. He moved on to Washington. He's playing a lot better football. Jalen Hurts, too. His numbers got better when he left the SEC. We're not hating on him right now in the NFL. He went to Oklahoma. I mean, it happens. Sometimes you have to show your ability by going to a system that fits you with not as much expectations. And remember, he was playing for his dad's school, so he put a lot of expectations on himself. Don't sit here and knock on him when other QBs do it. So,
2021.
I mean, I'm just saying, these Jaden Daniels is way better quarterback than Bo Nix right now.
I'll say I agree with you there, but I'm not going to hate on the kid for transferring because sometimes you have to.
No, I'm hating on the kid.
You ready for
couldn't make in that SEC?
You ready for these Pac-12 numbers?
Yeah, go for it.
So the highlight: 2021, 2,300 yards passing, 10 touchdowns, 10 interceptions for Arizona State.
Is this Jaden Daniels? Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
2020 was a COVID year. I mean, everybody was down that year. 2019, a very good year. I don't know, like if it was just being in the Pac-12 and just like the scheme at Arizona State, but almost 3,000 passing yards, 29-43, and 17 touchdowns, 2 picks. So I don't know what the fuck happened in 21, because I mean the numbers in 19 were fucking solid. I mean the pass yardage was low, but that's just if you're in the Pac-12 in a weaker conference and playing slower tempo games and those kind of things. I mean,
and receivers weren't also probably as good,
right? And then when you step into the SEC and you got to do more to win those games, like that shootout with Missouri. What the fuck?
I mean, we can all say Jade. I mean, some of these quarterbacks just have to transfer. It's just the way it goes. You have to get to a system that fits you, and that's what Bo Nix did. That's what Jaden Daniels has done. Like I said, Joe Burrow. We give him the credit. A lot of them do it. It's just the way that it goes.
Colt Brennan is a rare case. Okay,
Joe Burrow did it because of the quarterbacks in front of him.
But he also didn't look great his first year in LSU, and either. I mean, his first year, he took him a little time to adjust, and then second year, he fucking broke out. And I was going to say, Doc, too, is if Jay Daniels gets drafted number 1, we've seen a 50-50 success rate with the LSU QBs picked number 1. So he's got a 50% chance of having a good career number 1 if he's the first draft pick.
All depends on where he goes. Are they going to use him like Arizona State, or are they going to use him like LSU?
I mean, I still don't think he will be ready to step in right away, but
depending on how high he is, there's a chance if he goes top 10, they might be starting his ass in the first couple games. He might until the quarterback that's in front of him sucks. He'd be starting very soon. Seems that way a lot of the times now these days.
Yeah, he could go to the Saints and win that fucking QB battle real easy.
Yeah,
his biggest competition would be Taysom Hill.
Exactly.
Well, they owe Derek Carr a lot of money, so they unfortunately probably have to start him for another year at least.
They only got him for one more year, right?
I don't
4 years.
Fuck.
And I'm going to be honest. Back when we paid Mike Glennon $15 million a year, and that was a hefty bill for a fucking spot filler. Mike Glennon wouldn't have gotten paid $15 million a year anywhere else other than Chicago, and they put his ass on the bench real quick.
Yeah, but Derek Carr's getting like 30-something million a year, I think. 40 million a year.
Yeah, like 34.
Yeah, this is also back in Trubisky's rookie year when quarterbacks weren't making $40 million a year, though. I mean,
yeah,
quarterbacks were topping out probably high 20s.
But no, great episode, boys. Can't wait. Can't wait to see all the chaos that hopefully happens. That's what I'm looking for. Looking for all the underdogs to win except the Big 12 championship game. Just need chaos. That's all I want in front of me. I want a car wreck. I want a NASCAR race. That's what I want.
And the green wave. We got to root for the green wave.
And the Green Wave, yes, and
Oh, God,
Liberty.
it was the Green Wave.
And Liberty.
And
Yep.
Liberty. Yep.
Liberty's winning a natty champ this weekend. I don't know if y'all knew that.
Who's winning the AAC?
No,
now?
they have to. Can Liberty go to a bowl game?
Liberty,
Yes.
yeah, they're not.
Liberty-
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they can.
Yeah, so
This isn't
they have
their
to
first
win.
year, I
They,
don't think.
they have to win. They have to win this week and whatever bowl game. Then they win the Natty. can't
JMU
lose
is
the
going.
bowl
Oh,
game.
yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
JMU is going to a bowl game. There's not enough six win teams that are bowl eligible to go, so they gave them a bowl game. Not sure about Jacksonville State, but JMU got one.
They deserve it.
Yeah, they do. They're undefeated though, so they don't deserve a natty like Liberty. But boys, great episode. Like I said, can't wait to get back here next week. Talk NFL Monday. Depending on how the weekend goes, we might even throw some good college talk in there just to start the show. Depending on how hyped up I can be. But noon on Sunday is when the playoff committee will announce their decision. If they hopefully don't sleep on it overnight, they hopefully knock that shit out in the middle of the night, at least we can hear it. But great episode, boys. Good luck, Doc, to the Seminoles. Chris, have fun watching the games. I'm Mark Davis. Shout out to you, Lucas. All About the Balls podcast. We are out.
Thank you for checking out another episode of All About the Balls podcast. We want to thank all of our listeners and supporters of the Sack House. You can listen to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at the Sack House.